I can't even lie to you. In this track, I broke a lot of my producer rules, and I'm actually glad that I did. In this track, I did a lot of different techniques and things that I don't normally do, and I'm pretty happy with the results. Let's take a listen to the track. The first production rule that I broke was slow build. Usually in my beats, I like to get right to the action. I like to get right to the beat. And I'm actually glad that in this track, I broke that rule and I let the beat build a little bit. Even when it came down to this second part of the track where it says block 2, normally I would have let those drums ring out to their fullest. But what I did instead was I applied some different techniques. So for the drum track, for example, you will hear it. It sounds pretty choppy. And what I did to get that sound is I applied a gate to the drum loop, something I would not normally do. But by adding that drum gate, it allowed me to cut off some of those transients and make the drums a little dry. And that just kind of helped to give this track another section and to give the drums that impact when you hear them in the second part of the track. Now, of course, it's just a drum loop, and the drum loop is doing a lot of the heavy lifting. But even in that drum loop, some other things that I did is that I applied some automation. There's a lot more automation in this track than what I normally would add. And so in this track, I'm adding some automation here to the high mid frequencies. And so as you can see, the high mid frequencies are sweeping as the drum loop plays. The effect is subtle, but I kind of just like it. I like what it did to the drums, especially with the automation happening when those drums open up. It just gives it a little bit more flair, a little bit more character in the track. And so adding that gate and adding that automation to the drums, that really just did something for this track. But also another producer rule that I broke was using pattern mutator. Man, I can't tell you guys how many times using pattern mutator, I would often just get stuck confused, irritated, frustrated, just all of the different things. But this time around, I took my time, and it's actually the first sound that I worked on, of course, working with Objekt again, using that harp too. But this time around, again, adding some automation, I took my time with figuring out pattern mutator. And what's interesting about pattern mutator is once you set that first pattern and you get to adjusting these parameters and then you hit mutate, what I was able to do, or what helped me to figure it out, was to just copy that mutation to another pattern. So I filled up all of the patterns and then I automated between those patterns in the track. So as you can see here, it plays pattern 7, but then it automates between 7 and 6 on this harp. So I'll let you guys hear what I'm talking about. Seven is playing at a different rate than 6. And so that just gives it a little bit more flair. And what I will show you is in my block mode, I actually have another part of this pattern mutator that I use with different patterns in it as well, for a whole totally different vibe than what we got with this track. A much faster pattern is being played there. But again, those different patterns from those different mutations, you can hear just subtle differences in the MIDI notes, different lengths, different amount of notes, different velocities even, and also even different pitches. And that's simply by using this mutate button, changing these parameters, using mutate and copying to a different pattern, and then using edit automation to switch between those patterns to develop the pattern, to develop the melody. And of course, you know, you can always just hit send to track, and then that way it will map out all of the automation that you did will be mapped out as well. So as we can see here, now we have all of the notes and it follows the automation that we laid out with the pattern select. But let's get back to the original track. So there were a lot of different producer rules for myself, not to say that there's anything that you have to follow or you should follow, but just for myself, I broke a lot of my own traditional rules and I was glad for it. Like I said, for this second section, I dropped the bass out, and by dropping that bass out, it just really just gave room for when the bass did come in, it just gave it a lot more feel. Now, all of the sounds that are being produced are coming from Objekt, and I'm using players with most of these objects as well. Talking about automation, a lot of this automation is happening in this third part of the beat where we have this classic synth pad, and I'm using the synchronous to create some automation. So if we go in closer, we can kind of see some of the automation that was being created. Right here in this automation lane, I took the knob of the synchronous for the frequency and I recorded riding the knob in like this. I was riding the knob like this, but you don't have to do that. As you can see right here with these dry wet automations, the only thing I did was I created a clip and I set the automation either up or down, just one single point. up or down. And then what I did was change my snap and made it a much tighter snap so that I could change the distance like this. And then that just creates a off, dry, wet automation right there with that clip. So like your automation doesn't have to be like you have a full clip and the clip is like up and then the clip is down. You can just have, like I said, one single clip that just has one point, and now everything is set to up when that clip comes on. And so that's what I did with those, and it allowed me to play around with this automation a little bit more. So I was able to just add in a whole lot of these, like this part, for example. So where it has these four right here, that's where it's getting that stutter pattern that you're hearing. You're hearing that stuttering pattern. And on this pad, we're using, I believe it's a scales and chords. And we are just following two notes, two simple notes. But with automation, we're changing the way that these chords are being played in scales and chords. So open chords, close chords. I have an automation for that. I have an automation for the octave up and an automation for the octave down. So as you hear the chords, as these automations come in, it changes the way that the chord is being played. So like automation is one of those producer rules that I broke, which is not doing too much automation. And I'm really glad that I broke that rule. And learning synchronous is really going to be one of those things that it's just another effect that is going to really just change the way you make music. It's going to improve the way you change and affect your music in terms of using the different effects that they give you access to, because you have the ability to change them and apply the effect over time. And so we have this very slow pattern, which is giving us our wobble, but then we speed the pattern up on certain parts to give it that stutter effect, that feel that we're hearing. And I really just like the way that it came out. Let me get to it. Now I also did an offset to this as well. Normally it would have sounded like this, but I did an offset to it. And so you just play around with it. I set it to 30 for whatever reason. That just made it feel right. And so that's one of those things. It's like breaking the rules, changing what you normally would do. It really just can benefit you if you just experiment and explore and get creative. I really just got a little more creative in this track than I normally do. And players really just helped me to get a little more experimental and get a little more creative. I added this backbeat bassline generator to the bassline for the second go around. On the first go around, it's just two notes on the bassline, and the bassline is being generated by Objekt again with a little Audiomatic on it. This bassline is just two notes. But then when we add the bassline with the bassline generator, and of course what I did there was just another automation for the on. So we have the bassline generator, and then we are just automating it on and off. And again, I could have send to track, and then that way I would have all of the MIDI notes, but I decided to just leave it like this. This gives it a lot more energy than it's just one single tone, but even when you hear it with the track, it just really just comes together. So I really was just wanting to just give a few tips inside of Reason based upon this track that I was creating, and some of the rules that I taught myself along the years that I broke this time during this production. So we used a lot of gates and a lot of EQing techniques, a lot of automation in this track as well, in order to get the sound that we got. And it really was about being creative. It was about experimenting and just trying some new things, some different things that we don't normally necessarily do. And because of that, I really like the way that the track came out. You guys let me know. What do you guys think? Do you think that these are some rules that you would break, or these are some things that you normally would do? Did you find anything in this video that was helpful to you? I really would like to know. Please let me know down in the comments below. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it. The only other thing I did was I added in some arcade vocals.
But I can't even blame you.
But one of those vocals is just duplicated, but one of those vocals has a lot more reverb. And of course, we also gave it kind of like the telephone effect by channeling in these frequencies here using the low pass and high pass filter, just kind of channeling this 1.3 kilohertz range to just give it that kind of sound. And that helped to go from one section of the track, kind of like a chorus, if you will, to just like another portion of the track, where you can hear the vocal fully. But then this time around, we don't want to hear the vocal. This time we want to hear the pad. And so just a few things that I did differently with this track that I don't normally do. Now, one thing that I do a lot is I like to have drops. Drops is one of those things that I just really like. And I don't mean like big build drops. I literally just mean when you solo out a sound. So just soloing out that blame you right there as we go into the next part of the track. That's one of those things that I often do. That definitely wasn't a rule that I broke. That was something that I always do. But yeah, man, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please let me know if you did, if there was something in here that you see or saw that you wanted to ask questions about, or, you know, anything that you wanted to learn any more about. Please be sure to let me know in the comments section as well. And just one of those object examples so you can hear the way object sounds. I think it sounds great. We use pretty much a harp, a bass, and a pad in this track, and I really like the way that it sounds. All right, I'm gonna just stop saying I really like the way that it sounds, and I'm gonna say thank you guys so much for watching. Until next time, peace.